Hello guys, thanks for inviting me to take part in the Netherlands Rally for Scottish Independence. It's been a pleasure in the past to actually physically join with you, marching for Scottish independence and singing all the songs that we know raise our spirits and keep us going. But unfortunately, in the COVID-19 times that we've been living through, then virtual rallies like this are what we have to make do with. I just want to thank each and every one of you for all of the work that you continually do in keeping the spirit and the fire of independence going. You know, we've just had a big election in Scotland, and although there were clear opportunities that weren't grasped in the course of that election in terms of the use of the two votes that we had, the vote itself was an incredible endorsement, yet again, of independence. Because the parties that support independence now have a bigger majority than they had in 2016. And despite being in one form or other of power for 14 years, the SNP won a massive victory again against the unionist parties. And most people in Scotland, overwhelming majority of people in Scotland who voted SNP 1 and 2, did so because they want independence. In other words, this election that took place a few weeks ago in Scotland was an endorsement for the idea that Scotland actually takes its own destiny into its own hands. Some people argue still. I was speaking to a friend just the other day out walking who was saying to me that he's still not sure whether he's going to vote independence in the next referendum until he sees a detailed plan of how Scotland is going to cope and how Scotland's going to survive as an independent country. And I said to him, you know, you're looking in vain for a detailed plan, because detailed plans like that don't exist. No one knows with any certainty what the future holds in terms of how an independent Scotland will manage its own affairs. What we do know for certainty, however, is that whatever hue or cry is elected, whatever government is elected in an independent Scotland, there won't be a Tory government. They haven't won an election in Scotland since 1955. They're not going to win one in an independent Scotland. But what they will do, the people of Scotland will elect a government that will inevitably, certainly, manage our affairs better than Westminster. That's just the fact. That's the basic fundamental, that the people in Scotland are best placed to manage Scotland, to take the decisions for Scotland, to recognise that our country has got massive potential. Small country in population terms, a big country geographically, and a huge country as far as spirit and heart is concerned, as far as natural resources are concerned. Not just people talk about the oil and gas. We want to use the oil revenues in the next decade or so, not to pollute the world, but to develop the means through which we will have the leading sustainable energy industry in the whole of Europe. We've got the wind, we've got the waves, we've got the capacity to be the world leader in the production of sustainable energy, clean energy. Then why don't we do it? Well, one of the reasons we don't do it is because we don't have control of our own destinies. We don't even have control of the sustainable clean energy industry. These are the things that we can get control of if we gain our independence. And therefore, as I said to my friend, I'm not going to fall out with you over this, but I am saying to you is that the certainty that you have to accept is that Westminster is doing a much worse job than we could ever do on our own in Scotland. We've just had a remarkable session in Parliament where Mr Cummings, he who used to be one of the sewer rats inhabiting the sewer of deceit and lies and inherited privilege and all of the idea of chauvinism that actually pollutes the Tory party now. He was one of those lead rats, and he's jumped out of the sewer for a wee minute and he's grassing up his mates. He's telling us what we already knew, that they're a bunch of incompetent, deceitful liars who have completely and utterly lost the plot and have been running the UK as a private fiefdom for their friends, giving out contracts worth billions of pounds to pals that have just set up companies who supposedly supply PPE equipment, who are supposedly able to run track and trace systems. No experience, no credibility whatsoever, but billions, literally billions of pounds being given away. He says Hancock has lied 15 or 20 times and should have resigned or been sacked. He says Johnson is wholly incompetent and can't do the job. Well, we say we knew that already. Here in Scotland, we never voted for Hancock, we never voted for Johnson, we never voted for any of them. But we got them. Like every general election since 1955, we've never voted for the Tories in Scotland, but we got them anyway, despite the fact that we voted against them. That's what the British Union is all about. Wholly corrupt, wholly anti-Scottish, wholly against our interests. We need to convince the SNP leadership to strike while the iron is hot. Those who say wait, take your time, wait till we get a bigger support in the polls, I say absolute nonsense. The people who really need independence can't afford to wait any longer. Child poverty is through the roof. The level of depression and mental health problems is through the roof. COVID has only accentuated and accelerated the divisions that already exist in our society in Scotland. The idea of recovery from COVID is not separate from independence. The idea of recovery from COVID is integrally linked to independence. It's like a hand going into a glove. It goes with the whole idea that we recover from COVID-19, not to go back to paying care workers poverty wages, neglecting our health workers and our nurses, not to go back to starving public services in order to afford tax cuts for the rich. We don't want, that's not recovery. That's going back to a hell that we want to leave. That's why independence has to be a priority, has to be the priority of this next Scottish government. We need independence if we really want to recover from COVID-19. And we're demanding that the SNP use the mandate they've now been given. Well, they've been given about 6 mandates, but this one is absolutely a clear and incontrovertible argument for Indy Ref 2. We don't ask permission. Come on. We tell Westminster the day, the date, the question, who's entitled to vote, and we hold it. We politely inform Westminster. We don't ask permission from a country whose interest it is to keep us in the prison of the British Union. So, brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for inviting me to give you a wee contribution. I hope what I've said has chimed with some of the feelings you'll feel in your head and in your heart. Scottish independence, as far as I'm concerned, is not only necessary in order to recover from COVID-19, but it's also inevitable. And it's inevitable because the young people of this country want a better country to grow up in. They want a country that puts people before profit. They want a country that is more concerned with welfare than warfare. They want a country that actually lifts people out of poverty and wages war, not in people thousands of miles away, not in other countries, but wages war on inequality and the type of poverty that grinds far too many of our fellow citizens down. We need independence, and we need it now. Thanks very much.